Good evening, viewers. So today we will going to discuss about two units. That is your unit 4, unit 5, and unit 6. Okay. Your unit 5 discuss about various forms of government, like presidential form of government and parliamentary form of government. And unit 6 we discuss about federal system of government and unitary system of government. Okay. So first we discuss about what is parliamentary form of government. You all know that in India there is prevalence of parliamentary form of government. And what is parliamentary form of government? Parliamentary form of government is where the main features of parliamentary form of government is where two executives are found, like real executive and nominal executive. Then who is our real executive? Prime Minister. He is our real executive, and president, he is our nominal executive. So that is the basic difference between parliamentary form of government and presidential form of government. In presidential form of government, there is presence of only one executive, and he enjoy a real power. So first we discuss about parliamentary form of government or parliamentary system. Okay. The constitutions of India provide for a parliamentary form of government both at the center and the state. Okay, Article 74 and 75 deals with the parliamentary system at the center, and Article 163 and 164 in the states. Okay, Article 73 and 74 and 75 discuss about center parliamentary form of government, and Article 163 and 164 discuss about state parliamentary form of government. Okay, that means in both center and state we use parliamentary form of government. Modern democratic government are classified into two heads, that is parliamentary form of government and presidential form of government, as we already discussed, on the basis of nature of relationship between the executive and the legislative organ of the government. The parliamentary system of government is one in which the executive is responsible to the legislature, okay, for its policies and acts. Executive is always responsible to the legislature. But in the presidential system of government, on the other hand, is one in which the executive is not responsible to the legislature. That is also one big differences between parliamentary form of government and presidential form of government. In parliamentary form of government, there is executive is responsible for all its acts of omission or commission. He is responsible to the legislature. But in presidential form of government, executive is not responsible to the legislature. Okay, for its policies and acts, and it is continuously independent to the legislature in respective of terms of offices. Okay, the parliamentary government is also known as cabinet government or responsible government. Parliamentary government also known as cabinet government or responsible government, or Westministerial model of government, and is prevalent in Britain, Japan, Canada, India, among others. The presidential government, on the other hand, is also known as non-responsible or non-parliamentary or fixed executive system of government, and is prevalent in USA, Brazil, Russia, Sri Lanka, and many others country. Okay, then Edward Jennings, another eminent professor, okay, called the parliamentary system as cabinet system. Edward Jennings says parliamentary system is a cabinet system because the cabinet is the nucleus of power in a parliamentary system. The parliamentary government is also known as responsible government, as the cabinet is accountable to the parliament and stay in office so long as it enjoys the latter's confidence. Okay, it is described as Westminster model of government after the location of the British Parliament, where the parliamentary system originated. Okay, parliamentary system first originate in UK. Okay, In the past, the British constitutionals and political experts describe the Prime Minister as primus inter pares. Okay, in relation to the cabinet. In the recent period, the Prime Minister power is influenced and positions have increased significantly. Vice versa, the cabinet. Okay, he has came to play a dominant role in the British politico-administrative system. Hence, the latter political system like Crossman, Mackintosh, and others have described the British system of government as prime minister government. Okay, the same describe holds good in Indian context too. Okay, and that's why we call British parliamentary system is mother of parliamentary form of government. We borrow, as you know, that Indian constitutions are the silent features present in Indian constitutions. We follow that features from different we borrowed that features from different constitutions. So parliamentary features we borrowed from the British constitutions, because British parliamentary form of government is the mother of parliamentary form of government. That means parliamentary form of government originate in British. Okay. Then, what are the basic difference, or what are the different features of parliamentary form of government? Its first feature is nominal and real executive. As I already discussed, that in parliamentary form of government there is two executive. One is nominal executive and another is real executive. Okay. The president is nominal executive, with the prime minister is the real executive. Okay. Thus, the president is head of the state while prime minister is head of the government. Article 74 provides for a council of ministers headed by the prime ministers to aid and advise the president in the exercise of his function. To advise to so tendering is blinding on the president. Okay, this is the first features of parliamentary form of government. And next features is majority party rule. The political party which secures majority seats in Lok Sabha from the government. Okay, the leaders of the party is appointed as the prime minister by the president, and other ministers are appointed by the president on advice of the prime ministers. Okay. Here, when no single party gets the majority, a coalition of party may be invited by the president to form the government. Okay, this is the second basic features of parliamentary form of government. And third one is collective responsibility. What is the meaning of collective responsibility? This is the bedrock principles of parliamentary government. Okay, the ministers are collectively responsible to the parliament in general. Okay, that means ministers are always for their acts of omission and commission. They are responsible to the parliament. Okay, and to the Lok Sabha in particular. It is described in our Article 75 that our ministers are always responsible to the legislature. Okay. They act as a team and swim and sing together. The principles of collective responsibility implies that the Lok Sabha can remove the ministry from office by passing a vote of no confidence. So this is the basic features of collective responsibility. Then another feature is political homogeneity. Usually members of the Council of Ministers belongs to the same political party, and hence they share the same political ideology. In case of coalition government, the ministers are bounded by consensus. That means they are most of the ministers, they are from same political party. That is political homogeneity. Okay. Then double membership. The ministers are members of both the legislature and the executive. This means that a person cannot be a minister without being a member of the parliament. Okay, that means the ministers are maybe they are member from Lok Sabha, or they may be member from Rajya Sabha. Okay. The ministers are member both in legislature or executive. This means that a person cannot be ministers without being a member of the parliament. The constitution stipulates that a minister who is not a member of the parliament for a period of 6 consecutive months ceases to be a minister. Okay. Then next feature is leadership of the prime ministers. The prime ministers play the leadership role in these systems of government. Okay, he is the leader of council of ministers, leader of the parliament, and leader of the party in power. In these capacities, he plays a significant and highly crucial role in the functioning of the government. Okay, then next features is dissolutions of the lower houses. The lower houses of parliament can be dissolved by the president or recommendations of the prime ministers. In other words, the prime ministers can advise the president to dissolve the Lok Sabha before the expiry of its term and hold fresh elections. This means that the executive enjoys the right to get the legislative dissolved in a parliamentary system. Then next is secrecy. The ministers operates on the principles of secrecy of procedure and cannot inform about their proceedings or policies or decisions. They take the oath of secrecy before entering their office. Okay, the oath of secrecy to the ministers is administered by the president. Okay, these are the some basic features of parliamentary form of government. Then another one more features is fusion of executive and legislature. In parliamentary system, there is no clear-cut separations of power between the legislative and executive branches of government. Okay, on the contrary, there is a fusion of power, that is emergence of authority of the two organ of government. The fusion of legislature and executive exists in parliamentary system mainly in four forms. Firstly, executive is drawn from the legislature and remains accountable to it. Okay, a new government is formed only after it secures a vote of no confidence from the legislature. The vote of confidence refers to a vote by a majority of the members of legislature expressing their support for the new prime minister and his or her cabinet. The executive cannot pass its legislative proposal without the support of the majority of the members of legislature. Moreover, the members of executive, particularly cabinet ministers, are responsible to the legislature. They are answerable to the member of legislature about the activities of their respective department. Okay. Secondly, members of executive are also the members of legislature. Thirdly, legislature can remove the government from power before the completion of its term by passing a vote of no confidence or a vote by majority of the legislature indicating its lack of confidence in the prime ministers. Okay. Fourthly, the prime ministers can dissolve legislature before the expiry of its term and call for a new elections. This is one more features of parliamentary form of government. That means another features of parliamentary form of government is leadership of the head of the government. Okay, the parliamentary system, the real power on a day basis, as I already discussed, that who is the head of our parliamentary form of government. Our head of the government is prime minister. He enjoy the real power. Okay, then if he enjoy a real power, then it is definitely the leadership role also go to the prime ministers. Okay. Then these are the some basic features, and one more features is absence of fixed terms. Okay, in parliamentary system there is a absence of fixed terms of office. Okay, that means in as you know that the term of Lok Sabha is 5 years, but before 5 years the Lok Sabha may be dissolved by the prime ministers. Okay, so that's why Lok Sabha or our parliamentary body do not possess any fixed term. Okay, the legislature can remove the government before the complete of its term. Okay, by passing a vote of no confidence by the prime minister, and can dissolve legislature before the expiry of its term and call for new elections in order to take advantage of an electoral opportunities for his or her party. Okay, this feature is mainly found in the countries characterized by either coalitions government or single party majority government. Then in the countries where single party majority government are frequently found. Okay, these are the some basic features of parliamentary form of government. Then we discuss about formation of government in parliamentary system. How government is formed in parliamentary form of government. In parliamentary system, executive or government consists of prime ministers and council of ministers or cabinet is not elected separately, but rather is formed on the basis of legislative elections. In most parliamentary states, elections for legislatures are held after every 4 or 5 years. Okay, in India, for example, elections for Lok Sabha seats are held after completions of 5 years, while in Germany the term is 4 years. Okay, after the legislative election, the newly elected representative form a legislature as well becomes busy in forming the government. Okay, if a single political party wins the majority of legislative seats on its own, then the formations of government is straightforward. The head of states invites the leader of the majority party to serve as prime ministers and form a government. The prime minister then constitutes his council of minister or cabinet and allocates portfolio to his minister who are appointed by head of states or his or her advice. Okay, the minister, including the prime ministers, must be the member of legislature. If no single party gains a majority of legislative seats on its own, there are two alternatives from the formations of government in parliamentary states. Okay, the head of state in both situations can use his or her discretionary in appointing the prime minister. First, the head of state may recommend to leader of party with most legislative seats to form a coalition government or a government in which two or more parties pool their legislative seats to secure together a legislative majority. The party constituting the coalition jointly determine the head of government and cabinet positions. Second, the head of state may recommend it to the leader of party with most legislative seats to form the minority government. The government which is formed by the single party without a clear majority of legislative seats. Sweden, Norway, and Canada have the traditions of forming single party majority government. In parliamentary form of government, the prime ministers and his council of ministers are thus taken from the legislature. The government remains in power as long as it enjoys the support of legislature. If an incumbent government loses its majority in the legislature, then it removed by a vote of no confidence before the expiration of its term, and elections are held to form a new government. Okay, in general, the coalition governments and single party minority governments tend to be short-lived, as the vote of no confidence is far more likely in these governments. Okay, some parliamentary states such as Germany, Hungary, Israel, Spain use a different form of confidence vote known as the constructive vote of no confidence, under which the legislature is required to first select a new government before the removal of the incumbent government. Okay, so these in this way parliamentary form of government work. Okay, in different countries. Next, we discuss about the various features of presidential form of government and how presidential government fruitful in different countries and how presidential form of government work, and also discuss about its various features. The presidential system is a form of government in which the executive and legislative branches of government are separated, and there is a mutual independence between the two. That means legislative branches and executive branches are totally separated from each other. Okay, but in case of parliamentary form of government, these two branches are not separated from each other. Okay, so this is the basic broad difference between parliamentary and presidential form of government, and there is a mutual interdependence between the two branches. Okay, in this system, the executive and legislature are elected separately and have independent powers. Okay, according to some eminent person, J.W. Gardner. Okay, presidential form of government means, according to Gardner's definitions on presidential form of government, is that system in which the executive is constitutionally independent of the legislature in respect of to the duration of his or their tenure, and responsible to it for his or their political policies. Okay, the best example of this system in the United States, where it emerged and has been adopted by almost all the states of continental Americans, such as Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, Chile, Colombia, etc. Okay, it also exists in African countries such as Ghana, Kenya, Zimbabwe, etc. And in some Asian countries, as well as some Asian countries like Indonesia, Maldives, Philippines, etc. Okay, the presidential system has its distinctive feature that distinguish it from a parliamentary form of government. Its key features are some key features of presidential form of government. Is first feature is the American president is both the head of the state and the head of the government. Here, head of the state is different body and head of the government is different body. But in presidential form of government, there is presidents enjoy head of the government and head of the state. Okay. As the head of the state, he occupies a ceremonial position. As the head of the government, he leads the executing organ of the government. Okay, the president is elected by an electoral college for a fixed tenure of 4 years. Okay, he cannot be removed by the Congress, except by, Congress means their parliamentary body, except by impeachment for a grave unconstitutional act. Okay, the president governs with the help of a cabinet or a smaller body called kitchen cabinet. Okay, it is only an advisory body and consists of non-elected departmental secretaries. Okay, they are selected and appointed by him. That means they are elected and selected by the president, are responsible only to the president and can be removed only by the president anytime. Okay, the president and his secretariats are not responsible to the Congress for their acts. They neither possess membership in the Congress nor attend its session. Okay, the president cannot dissolve the House of Representatives, the lower house of the Congress, Congress. Then the doctrine of separations of power is the basis of the American presidential system. The legislature, executive, and judicial power of the government are separated and vested in the three independent organs of the government. These are the some basic features of presidential form of government. Besides, some other features also include in this presidential form of government, like single head. In presidential system, a single elected person, as I already discussed, that he enjoy both the power from the state and government. Okay, known as president, wears what Andrew sometimes calls it two hats. Okay, both the head of state and the head of the government. Okay, and the president directs the government and exercises the political responsibilities as well as performs the ceremonial duties. However, the president is far weaker than prime ministers in a parliamentary system and has less control over the legislature and is member than prime minister has in parliamentary state. Okay, this is parliamentary primary because of the doctrine of separations of power, because its branches are separated from each other. Okay, branches mean three organ of the government: legislature, executive, and judiciary. Then what is separations of power? The defining features of presidential form of government is the principle of separations of power. There is a clear division of power and responsibility among the three branches of government: legislature, executive, and judiciary. Okay. The separations of power between legislature and executive exist in presidential system mainly in following forms. What are the following forms? First, the executive is not drawn from the legislature. Instead, both the president and legislature are elected separately in their own election. Then second, the president is directly accountable and responsible to the electorate, not to the legislature, as he or she is elected by the people, either directly or through an electoral college. Third, the legislature cannot remove the president before the expiry of his or her term. It can do so only in the exceptional circumstances through a process of impeachment. Fourth, president cannot dissolve the legislature before the expiry of its term. And fifth one is the member of executive, including the president, cannot be the member of legislature and vice versa. Okay, a member of the legislature cannot join the executive branch, and executive members cannot sit in the legislature and take part in the legislative process. Okay. Then another feature is presidents and cabinet members. In the presidential system, the president has completely freedom in the appointment of cabinet members and formations of government, though they cannot be drawn from the legislature. The cabinet members appointed by president serves as his or her policy advisor rather than policymaker, and are individually accountable only to the president, not to the people. He or she has absolute authority to hire and fire his or her cabinet members who share no decision-making power with him or her. Okay, in this respect, there is a unipersonal executive responsibility in presidential form of government, and cabinet is so far less important decision making body. Okay, the next feature is law making authority. In presidential system, the executive has far less law making authority than executive in a parliamentary system. The American president, for example, can veto a legislation passed by the Congress, okay, but the latter can override a veto with a two-third majority vote. Similarly, the president can sign treaties, but such treaties are subject to approval of the Senate. Because of mutual independence of executive and legislative branches in terms of their selections, tenure, and membership, the legislature is far more independent law-making body than legislature in a parliamentary system. Then another feature is fixed terms of offices. Okay, in presidential form of government, there is fixed terms of their offices. Another distinguished features of presidential system: in the presence of fixed term, both the president and the legislature have fixed term of the office, meaning that neither can usually remove the other before the expiry of given term. The president is elected separately for a fixed term, which varies from 4 to 6 years in different presidential states. The president's term is not independent on the legislative support as in a parliamentary system. This means that the legislature cannot usually remove the president before the expiry of his or her term, except in the exceptional circumstances through a process of impeachment, which needs extraordinary measures, extraordinary measures. And similarly, the president cannot dissolve the legislature and remove its members who enjoy their own democratic mandates. Okay. So these are the some features of presidential form of government. Then we discuss what are the different merit and demerit of parliamentary form of government. Its first merit is harmony between legislature and executive. Okay. The advantages of parliamentary system is that it ensure harmony relationship and cooperations between the legislative and executive organ of the government. The executive is a part of the legislature, or both are interdependent at work. As a result, there is less scope for dispute and conflicts between the two organs. This is the first merit of parliamentary form of government. And second is responsible government. By its very nature, the parliamentary system establishes it's a responsible government. The ministers are responsible to the parliament for all their acts of omissions and commissions. The parliament exercise control over the minister through various devices like questions hour, discussions, adjournment motions, no confidence motions, etc. Okay. Then another merit is prevents despotism. Under this system, the executive authority is vested in a group of individuals and not in a single person. The dispersal of authority checks the dictatorial tendency of the executive. Moreover, the executive is responsible to the parliament and can be removed by a no confidence motion. Okay. Then another merit is a ready alternative government. Okay. In case the ruling party lost its majority, the head of the state can invite the opposition party to form the government. This means an alternative government can be formed without fresh elections. This is another merit of parliamentary form of government. Then another merit is wide responsibility. In a parliamentary system, the executive consists of a group of individuals. Okay, hence it is possible to provide representation to all sections and regions in the government. The Prime Minister, while selecting his ministers, can take this factor into consideration. These are some merit of parliamentary form of government. Then what are the demerit of parliamentary form of government? Its first demerit is unstable government. The parliamentary system does not provide a stable government. There is no guarantee that a government can survive its tenure. Okay, the minister depends on the hierarchy of the majority legislature for their continuity and survival in office. A no confidence motions or political defections or evil of multi-party coalitions can make the government unstable. Okay. Then another demerit is no continuity of policies. Okay, the parliamentary system is not conducive for the formulations and implementations of long-term policies. This is due to the uncertainty of the tenure of the government. A change in the ruling party is usually followed by changes in the policies of the government. For example, the Janta government headed by Morarji Desai in 1977 reserved a large number of policies of the previous Congress government. The same was repeated by the Congress government after it came back to power in 1980. Okay. Then another demerit is dictatorship of the cabinet. Okay, when the ruling party enjoys absolute majority in the parliament, the cabinet becomes autocratic and exercises nearly unlimited powers. Okay, then another demerit is against separations of powers. Against separations of power. In the parliamentary system, the legislature and the executive are together and inseparable. Okay, the cabinet acts as the leader of legislature as well as the executive as well as the executive organ. Okay, then government by amateurs. Okay, the parliamentary system is not conducive to administrative efficiency as the ministers are not experts in their field. The prime minister has a limited choice in the selections of minister. His choices is restricted to the members of parliament alone and does not extend to external talent. Okay, these are the some demerit of parliamentary form of government. Then next we discuss what are the different merit and demerit of presidential form of government. What are the demerit of presidential form of government? The debate regarding the respective advantages and disadvantages of parliamentary and presidential system has a long history in political science. So, what are the disadvantages of presidential form of government? What are the merit and demerit or advantages and disadvantages of presidential government form of government? Like parliamentary system, presidential system has its own strength and weakness. For advocates, presidential systems are preferable to parliamentary system because of the following advantages they are carry. What are the following advantages? Is first advantages is the separations of power between the legislative and executive branches. Okay, prevents the problem of executive dominations, establishes limited government, and thereby protects individual rights and liberties. This is the first merit point of parliament presidential form of government. Then second is, unlike the parliamentary system under which each party is likely to represent only its sympathies, president in presidential system as a single nationality elected officials tend to represent an entire country and thereby acts as a symbol of national unity. Thirdly, because of fixed term, the presidential system provides greater continuity in the executive and ensure far more political stability than parliamentary system. Then fourth one is presidential systems are far more efficient than parliamentary system in the sense that voters are likely to have information in advance about who will lead the new government. Okay, these are the some another merit point is presidential system provide voter more opportunities to influence and shape the policy making process in that they are represented by two separately and independently elected institutions, legislature and executive. And finally, because of independence of legislature, the individuals elected members of the legislature in presidential system tend to have more influence on policy making than in a parliamentary system. Okay, these are the some strong point of presidential form of government. Then what are the weak point of presidential form of government? The presidential system are not free from weakness either. Okay, critics of presidential system points out a number of potential disadvantages. First disadvantages is because of separations of power, the presidential systems are likely to cause a deadlock between legislature and executive in the sense that these two institutions on the basis of their equal public legitimacy tend to clash over policy, causing a threat to effective policy making and effective implementations of policy programs. Secondly, several political scientists argue that there is far less democratic stability in presidential state with deep political cleavage and multiple parties that in parliamentary state in the sense that dual legitimacy prevents the executive and legislature to arrive at democratic resolutions of conflict. Then third one is presidential systems are highly rigid in both the executive and legislative have fixed terms of offices. Then Next is the president on the basis of his or her national mandate tends to be averse to any form of power sharing and compromise. In this respect, the presidential system is problematic in highly divided societies. And fifthly, accountability in presidential system becomes blurred in that both legislative and executive branches claim credit for policy sufficient and upload the blame for policy failure. Finally, because of a unipersonal executive responsibility, the presidential system suffers from the problem of weak cabinet causing far less deliberation than occurs under parliamentary system. Though, so these are some weakness which relates to presidential form of government. So both parliamentary form of government and presidential form of government have some merit point and also have some demerit point. So these are the two forms of government, presidential form of government and parliamentary form of government. Okay, so your unit 5 is over. Then we discuss about federal form of government, federal system of government and unitary systems of government. What is the federal system of government and what is unitary systems of government? Okay, in the early modern states that emerged in Europe were absolute monarchies. Okay, they were predominantly hierarchic or organic states with power vested in the hands of monarch. But as their economies underwent change, culminating in the Industrial Revolution, political ideas about how people should be governed too underwent a change. The American and French Revolution in the latter half of the 18th century gave a blow to monarchy and brought about republican and democratic form of government. Even in countries where democratic ideas had not gained popularity, the rules realized that the power can be managed entirely by a central authority and that there was a need for decentralization. The two major political systems which emerged on the basis of distributions of power between different political units of a state were unitary and federal system. Okay, with the changing nature of the state and the economy in the post-war years, the boundaries between the unitary and federal have become blurred. Okay, today most political system contain some features which are mainly unitary and others which are federal. So what we have to see is whether a government is basically unitary or basically federal. Okay, so what is the meaning of federal system, federal form of government, and what is the meaning of unitary form of government, where power is divided between two sets of government, central government and state government. There we found there is a federal system of government, but where power is concentrated within one government, that is there we found that there is practice of unitary form of government. So we discuss about what are the federal features or what are the federal form of government. Okay, political scientists have classified government into unitary and federal on the basis of the nature of relations between the national government and the regional government. Okay, by definition, a unitary government is one in which all powers are vested in the national government, and the regional government, if all it exists, derives their authority from the national government. That means in unitary government, only national government enjoy powers. Okay, the federal government on the other hand is one in which powers are divided between the national government and the regional government, that means center and state, by the constitution itself. Both operated in their respective jurisdiction independently. Okay, Britain, France, Japan, China, Italy, Belgium, Norway, Sweden, Spain and so on have unitary model of government, while the USA, Switzerland, Australia, Canada, Russia, Brazil, Argentina and so on have a federal form of government. Okay, in a federal model, the national government is known as federal government or the central government or the union government, and the regional government is known as state government or the provincial government. Okay, so what are the basic features of federal form of government? Uh, Before discuss about various features of federal form of government, we discuss about the its evolutions of federal form of government, how federal form of government comes. Okay, and the first federal form of government came into being in the United States of America in the 18th century, when the 13th colonies become free from British colonial control in the War of American Independence. They first established a confederation. As these confederations proved inadequate to meet the needs of the situation, the representative of state meets together in a convention in 1789 and drafted a federal constitution. The states created a structure of government at the center and conferred on each certain specified power, retaining the residual power with themselves. The Constitution has become a model for over a score of federal polities that came to being in the subsequent year. Okay, the American state, while even while uniting to establish a federal government, took care a hedge the power of the central or federal government in order to protect their interests. For instance, the Senate, a part of the federal legislature, gave equal representation to the state. They also ensured that the constitution itself could not be amended without the consent of three-fourths of the states. For a time, it was held that the states and the federal government held dual sovereignty. This matter reached a point of crisis when some of the states in the south attempted to assert their sovereignty and seized on the questions of slavery. Okay, the Civil War and followed decide one for all. The United States was undestructible union of undestructible states. So in this way, federal form of government came. Okay. Then the federation is derived from the Latin word feudus, okay, which means treaty or agreement. Thus, a federation is now state which is formed through a treaty or an agreement between the various units. The units of a federation are known by various names like states, the cantons, or provinces or republics. Okay, a federation can be formed in two ways, that is by way of integration or by way of disintegrations. Okay, in the first cases, a number of military weak or economically backward states come together to form a big and strong union. So, for example, the USA, and in the second case, a big unitary state is converted into a federation by granting autonomy to the provinces to promote regional interest. Okay, in this way, our federal system of government came to power. Then, what are the basic features of federal form of government? Its first feature is dual polity. Okay, the constitution establishes a dual polity consisting the union at the center and state at the periphery. Each is endowed with sovereign powers to be exercised in the field assigned to them respectively by the constitutions. The union government deals with the matter of national importance like defense, foreign affairs, currency, communications, and so on. The state government, on the other hand, look after the matters of regional and local importance like public order, agriculture, health, local government, and so on. This is all about dual polity. Then written constitutions. The constitution is not only a written document but also the lengthiest constitutions of the world. Originally, it contained a preamble that is 395 articles. Okay. And 8 schedule. At present, it consists of a preamble about 465 articles, okay, and 12 schedule. It specific the structure, organization, powers and functions of both the center and the state government. It's about India, okay, and prescribes the limitations within which they must operate. In India, there is 395 articles, but at present it has 465 articles and 12 schedule, okay. Then another feature is division of power. Although the manner and degree of divisions of power varies across the system, the core feature of a federation is the division of power between the federal and the state. That means distributions of power between the central government and the state government. This can be achieved by specifying the subject on which the federal and central government has exclusively jurisdiction and the keeping the residuary powers with the states. Another way this is done is by specifying the subject allotted to both the center and the state and giving subject not mentioned in the list to the center. Okay, in India, Canada, and Belgium, for instance, the residuary power given to the center. The Indian constitutions decide specifying the subject matter on the state and center and states. Okay, also provides for a concurrent list over which both the center and state have jurisdiction. That means in India, these powers are distributed by the medium of three lists, that is state list, center list, and concurrent list. Okay. Then supremacy of the constitution. The constitution is the supreme law of the land. The law enacted by the center and the states must conform to its provisions. Otherwise, they can be declared invalid by the Supreme Court or the High Court through their power of judicial review. Thus, the organ of government at both levels must operate within the jurisdiction prescribed by the constitutions. Then another feature is rigid constitutions. The divisions of power established by the constitution as well as supremacy of the constitutions can be maintained only if the method of its amendment is rigid. Hence, the constitution is rigid to the extent that those provisions which are concerned with the federal structure can be amended only by the joint action of the central and state government. Okay, such provision requires for their amendment a special majority of the parliament and also an approval of half of the state legislature. Then another feature is independent judiciary. The constitution establishes an independent judiciary headed by the Supreme Court for two purposes. One, to protect the supremacy of the constitutions by exercising the power of judicial review, and two, to settle the disputes between the center and states or between the state. The constitution contains various measures like security of tenure of judges, fixed service conditions, and so on, make the judiciary independent of the government. The next feature is bicameralism. The constitution provides for a bicameral legislature consisting of an upper house, that is Rajya Sabha, and a lower house, that is Lok Sabha in India. Okay, these are the some basic features, and another one more feature is judicial review. The legal supremacy of the constitution, which is an essential feature of federal system, make it necessary that there is a body above both the federal government and the state government to decide whether they are operating within the powers given to them. Okay, these functions of interpreting the constitution is usually given to the Supreme Court. It is the Supreme Court which decides the legal disputes arising between the center and states or between two or more states. It can declare any act or law unconstitutional and void if it going against the constitution and its spirit. Okay, in some cases, these functions can be entrusted to an independent body for a long time. These functions relating to the Canadian Constitution was performed by the Privy Council in England. The power of the Supreme Court to decide the constitutional validity of law is called the power of judicial review. That means if any law created by the legislature or executive, and if that law is going against our constitution, judiciary declare that law is unconstitutional or ultra biased. That is the power of judicial review. Okay. Then we discuss changing nature of federalism. As mentioned earlier, there is no fixed meaning of federalism, and its meaning keep on evolving with the changing times. The earliest understanding of federalism as put by the John Alcian, the German thinker in early 17th century, in that every human association is formed by a pact, and that pact forms the fundamental basis for living together, which then further leads to the formations of federal union. Thus, his idea brought federation into forefront as important notion for organizing society and polity. Okay. Later, with the formations of the American Federation, the notions of dual federalism took shape. In dual federalism, the two levels of government are seen as sovereign in their respective sphere, and thus both are considered to be equal. This arrangement lasted for over a century, but with constant tension between the two governments. While the role of federal government was seen to be limited by the states, the federal government strove for creating a large political national community. It was only in the 1930 and 1940 when the American federal government began to regulate the economy that dual federalism faded, make way for cooperative federalism. In this government, in this arrangement, government at both the levels can to be seen as complementary and working in harmony based on the principles of internal give and take. Okay. In cooperative federalism, the main focus has been on maintaining the integrity of the union and promoting the welfare of citizens by finding joint solutions. Okay, but in actual working in America, Australia, and Canada shows the notion of cooperation federalism in the name of achieving welfare of citizens lead to centralizations of power, effectively reducing the autonomy and authority of the government. Okay, this is all about our federal system of government. Then what is unitary government? Okay, unitary systems are much older than federal system. As said earlier, the emergence of modern unitary system could be traced to the collapse of feudalism and the rise of absolute monarchies in Europe. It is in the context of the emergence of king and his ministers as the center of political power that monastic theory of sovereignty were put forward by thinkers like Thomas Hobbes and Jean Bodin. Okay. The central government claimed political supremacy. Since the 19th century, the ideology of nationalism reached out integrations of diverse regions or people under one command has further strengthened this tendency. As nation came to be organized on the basis of common language, sometimes in combinations with religion, England, France, Italy, Holland, and other European states emerged as nation states. All these nation states had unitary form of government, so the extent of centralizations of power varied among them. Okay. So, in unitary form of government, power is concentrated only within the one government. Okay, that is national government. Then, what are the basic features of unitary form of government? Its first feature is strong center. Okay, the divisions of power is in favor of the center and highly inequitable from the federal engine. Firstly, the union list contains some subject, then the state list. Okay. Secondly, the more important subjects have been included in the union list. Thirdly, the center has overriding authority over the concurrent list. Finally, the residuary power have also been left with the center, while in USA they are vested in the state. Thus, the constitution has made the center very strong. Then second feature is state not indestructible. Okay. Like in other federation, the state in India have no right to territorial integrity. The parliament can by unilateral action changes the area boundaries or name of any state. Moreover, it requires only a simple majority and not a special majority. Hence, the Indian Federation is an undestructible union of destructible states. The American Federation, on the other hand, is described as an indestructible union and indestructible state. Okay. Then another feature is single constitutions. Usually, in a federation, the states have the right to frame their own constitutions separate from that of the central. In India, on the contrary, no such power is given to the state. The constitutions of India embodies not only the constitutions of the center but also those of the state. Okay. Then another is flexible of the constitution. The process of constitutional amendment is less rigid than what is found in other federations. The bulk of the constitutions can be amended by the unilateral action of the parliament, either by simple majority or by special majority. The next one is no equality of state representations. Okay, the states are given representations in the Rajya Sabha on the basis of population. Hence, the members varies from 1 to 31. In US, on the other hand, the principles of equality of representations of state in the upper house is fully recognized. Okay. Thus, the American Senate has 100 members, 2 from each state. Okay. Then emergency provisions. The Constitution stipulates 3 types of emergencies: national emergencies, state emergencies, and financial emergencies. Then single citizenship. In spite of a dual polity, the constitutions of India, like that of Canada, adopted the system of single citizenship. Then integrated judiciary. The Indian constitution has established an integrated judicial system with the Supreme Court as the top level court and state high court below it. Okay. This single system of courts enforce both the central law as well as state laws. Okay. Then all India services. Another features, all India services. In US, the federal government and the state government have their separate public services. In India also, the state and the center and state have their separate public service. But in addition, there are all India services which are common both to both for the center and the states. The member of these services are recruited and trained by the center, which also possesses ultimate control over them. Okay. Then another feature is integrated audit machinery. The Comptroller and Auditor General of India audits the accounts of not only the central government but also those of states. Okay. Then another is Parliament's authority over state leagues. Even in the limited sphere of authority allotted to them, the states do not have exclusive control. The Parliament is empowered to legislate on any subject of the state list if Rajya Sabha passes a resolution of the effect in national interest. Then another feature is appointment of governor. The governor, who is the head of the state, is appointed by the president. He holds office during the pleasure of the president. He also acts as an agent of the center. Then another is integrated election machinery. The election commission conducts election not only to the central legislature but also to the state legislature. Then another is veto over state bills. The governor is empowered to reserve certain types of bills passed by the state legislature for the considerations of the president. Okay, the president can withhold his assent to such bills or not only in the first instance but also in the second instance. So these are the some basic features of unitary form of government. Then what are the difference between federal and unitary system? Its first difference is sources of power. In the case of federal system, the constituent units have well defined power of their own, which is not delegated to them by the central government but is inherent to them. Then another is nature of power. In federal system, the power is inherent in the constituent units and thus is of a permanent nature and cannot be altered or taken away by federal government on their whims and fancies. Okay, then territorial demarcation in the case of federal system, when the units are divided, or when various units come together, it is mainly for the purposes of accommodations is diversity and providing scope for pluralism. Okay, the next one is decentralizations and non-centralizations. Generally, when we look at the political arrangement in which the lower level of administration units have effective power in their hands, we tend to confuse that with the federal system, but it has to be made clear that there is a difference between purposive decentralizations of power and non-centralizations of power. Okay, then functional autonomy. In a federal system, the constituent units have greater degree of functional autonomy and have substantive functional power. In the federal system, the constitution units embody the idea of self-rule and power sharing. On the other hand, when the power is decentralized in a unitary system, the regional administration enjoy a limited functional autonomy, as when the power is developed to the lower level, it leads to offloading, okay, of some of the functions for the purposes of administrative convenience rather than providing for substantive autonomy in decision making. So these are the some differences between federal and unitary form of government. So this is all about our parliamentary and presidential form of government and federal and unitary systems of government. Okay, now you may write down some probable questions. Your first question is explain presidential system. Explain presidential system and highlights its major features. Explains presidential system and highlights its major features. Then second one is explains parliamentary system and highlights its basic features. Then next one is discuss merit and demerit of parliamentary form of government. Discuss merit and demerit of parliamentary form of government. Then another question is discuss merit and demerit of presidential form of government. Then another question is what is the defining differences, or what is the basic differences between presidential and parliamentary form of government. Then another question is what are the different features of federal system of government? What are the different features of federal system of government? And another question is what are the different features of unitary systems of government? Okay, these are the some probable questions relating to your units. Okay, that's all. If you have any query or if you have any doubt, then you can ask me. Okay, then thank you.